See, there is no God like our God. There's no one like you who can bear life like you and who paid out.
Hello, Lovies. How are you all? It has been a long time since we've been together, but with the world in the state that it's in, I wanted to come back, drop some community and some companionship and just some foolishness back into your life. Foolishness that is welcome as opposed to foolishness that has been foisted upon you in a disrespectful way, like what we're experiencing. Let's get into our Bible verse for today. Sometimes it'll be a quote, sometimes it'll be a Bible verse. Today, we are reading from Psalms 1:116. And the verse is number 7. Return to your rest, O my soul, for the Lord has been good to you. Hallelujah. All right. So what I wanted to talk with you guys about today, other than our English breakfast tea, which is a black tea, it's a Twinings. Other than that, I wanted to talk to you guys about my crazy PhD journey. Right? And I told God at the beginning of this, and God told me at the beginning of this, that I had to remember, no matter what, to share my testimony when it was all said and done. So that is what we're doing today. So let's rewind the clock. It is October of last year. I've just moved to Chicago a month ago to go to the University of Chicago to get my master's degree. My master's degree is 9 to 10 months long, right? So I know that when I get this degree, I want to go get my PhD, and I have to start applying pretty much when I get to school at Chicago so that I don't have another 8-10 month break after my master's degree like I had after my bachelor's degree. So I get there, I'm looking for PhD programs and stuff, stressed out. Ooh, please don't look at my nails too intensely. The Lord has closed all of the nail salons in my area because He is testing me in a new and exciting way. So forgive it. Continuing on with the story. I'm looking for PhD programs. I'm having a hard time. Also ignore what's going on with the lighting. I don't know what that is. Having a hard time. I'm stressing out. I'm anxious. I'm like, I don't know what we're doing, God. I'm not sure if this is even something I want. I'm not sure if this is something you want, because it's going to be 4 to 5 to 6 years of me trying to get this degree, and it's going to be more debt. And I'm just like stressed to capacity. And I hear God say to me, take the month of October. Do not. So I guess I was really looking in September then. Take the month of October. Do not research. Don't really look at your PhD. Don't really think about your PhD or anything like that. I want you to get acclimated to this blessing that you essentially just asked for. I just was begging God to give me a master's degree and to put me in a good place to get that and everything else and move me to where I needed to be. So He was like, live in this moment, enjoy this moment and this blessing that I just gave you. And then if I'm still speaking to you about this PhD life by November, then I will give you everything that you need to have everything that you want when it comes to this PhD. So I said, okay, Jesus, which was crazy. But I took the month of October. I was just kind of meeting people, getting acclimated to my classes, getting to know Chicago and my new home and everything else like that. And I would have conversations with professors every so often, and they would start talking about their school journey and them having their PhD degrees and how essentially like no journey looks exactly the same, that everybody kind of stumbles into their destiny differently. And November came around and I felt like God was still telling me to go get the PhD and that He was going to put that into my life and it was going to be good and grand. So I said, all right. So November started and I started looking for PhD programs after maybe about a week or two, because I wanted to make sure that I was in fact hearing God say, go ahead. And then I had to go talk to different professors and see if they would write me letters of recommendation. Because essentially I had just known these people about a month and a half. And or some people who were in my program, I knew a little bit longer, right? But it was still a very short amount of time to come and ask people, hey, will you write me letters of recommendation? I just met you. So I went to go talk to like my preceptor, and he's like, you sure that you want to do this? They really do not recommend applying for your PhDs in the midst of your math, Masters of Humanities acronym program. They don't think that that's the right thing to do most of the time because it's stressful and it's a lot and they want you to focus, and the program is super short and intensive, and you'll have a stronger application when it's said and done. Right? So I have that voice in my system. But he says yes, that he will write me a letter of recommendation. I go to the director of my department and also a professor of mine. And I'm like, hey, will you write me a letter of recommendation? And she's like, are you sure that's a great idea? I think you can't. I don't think that you can't do this. I think that if anyone can, it can be you, and it will be you who will do it successfully. I just want to make sure that you're taking the time to, think about this thoroughly. So I have that voice in my head, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe this is me being a little foolish and hasty. And then I go to a film director kind of professor of mine and ask for a letter of recommendation. He's like, yeah, I think I've seen enough of your work. I don't see a problem writing you a letter of recommendation at all. I was like, yes, come on, positivity. You knew I was struggling, Jesus, and you threw some good, happy graciousness in my life. So I had talked to about 3 or 4 professors and gotten some solid, yes, I will write you letters of recommendation. And I was like, okay, cool, off to the races with that. Now we just need to find the programs that I'm going to apply to. So I really had to speak into the ether, and I really had to take some soul journeys and figure out what in fact I actually wanted to go to school for, because I wasn't completely sure. Like, I knew I wanted that kind of liberal arts, humanities thing, but I really wasn't sure what I specifically wanted to go to school for. So I ended up saying, okay, God, I've been playing around with theater and performance studies for a long time, but never fully committing to it. And God was like, yeah, let's just make that choice. If you're going to spend a long time doing something, just commit to the thing that actually sets your soul ablaze. So I was like, all right, so we're going to apply to theater and performance studies, PhDs. And I was like, I don't want to be there for a long time. So I need somewhere that's going to at least kind of say that they're going to try to get me out in 4 years. I wanted somewhere that funds their people and gives like tuition waivers and stuff like that. And I also wanted a place that was warm. After living in Chicago for a little bit, I needed someplace warm. And I needed somewhere that they had diverse course offerings, diverse like faculty offerings, and hopefully a little more Black people than University of Chicago offered me, right? So I was like, okay, I have my list. This is what I'm looking for. So I went to, I think it's the American Association of Theater or something, and it breaks down every PhD offering program by state and by country, and it was a great resource. So check that out. Let me know if y'all need that link. So I went through there and looked at warm places and just kind of went through my list and found the places that worked for that. So in the end, I had about 6 programs. So this was maybe mid-November, towards the end of November. If I'm being honest, it's the end of November, and I have like 6 programs. And I'm still struggling emotionally, feeling like this is in fact exactly what God told me to do, because I feel stress and pressure. And I'm like, why? I don't know if this stress is just that I care and that I'm scared about, like in a human way, or if it's a sign that I'm not supposed to be doing this right now. So I was having an issue discerning that. And I just kind of kept going to God and kept listening to sermons and reading my Bible and taking soul journeys and meditating. And I was just stressed. My stress had hit a peak. And I went to go talk to my professor, the one who runs the department, the director of my department, or program rather. And I went to go talk to her about my writing samples. And I spent the whole time talking about how stressed I was and almost crying. And I'm comfortable crying, but I am not comfortable crying if I have not told myself, okay, we gonna cry. This is cry time, right? I'm not comfortable if crying gets like pulled out of me. So after talking to her, there was a, hey, so you're thinking about doing a PhD workshop that I wasn't even thinking about going or know was happening. And I was like, okay, well, let me go to that, I guess, while I'm working on my like writing sample for a PhD program. So I went and I was listening to them talk, and I was listening to basically everyone again saying that everybody's journey kind of looks different and you have to make it work for you and make this whole process work for you. And I just heard the Holy Spirit say 4. I heard him say, apply to 4 places. Reduce the list. You're doing too much. Apply to 4. So I was like, okay. So I weeded down my list to Louisiana State University, Florida State University, UCLA, and University of Georgia, UGA. So it's like, okay, we have the 4. And I think at that point, I just kind of made the decision. I feel like this is what God is asking me to do. I know that he will give provision for where his purpose is in me and in my life. And at this point, it's just about making the decision to just do, right? So I find on one of the applications that I don't have a writing sample that's anywhere near long enough, right? It's like I have 10 pages, 12 pages tops. I need a 20-page work. So I'm sitting down. I'm like, okay, I got to try to figure out how to combine 2 papers that I have and make them into one uniform paper. Sit down, knock that out. I don't know how long it took. Trying to get my writing samples. So I'm sending writing samples to like old professors, and thank you to those people who like sat down and looked at them, and I appreciate you. Reaching out to old professors to talk to new professors about what they could say in letters of recommendation and things of that nature. Coming up with like a portfolio of who I think I am as a person so that these letter recommendation writers have like an idea of who this essentially month-old relationship person is coming to them with, right? If that sentence makes any sense, because I don't think it does. So yeah, just a lot. I'm just trying to get things done, trying to make this pop. At this point, this is December. And I have like a week or so until my first application is due. And I'm just trying to nail everything out. And I get that first application in. I'm like, okay, cool. Trying to send transcripts, trying to do everything that everybody needs me to do. And every application is built different. And I'm like, okay, just knocking it out. I come home for winter break probably early December. And I still have 3 more applications that need to be done. And the deadlines are anywhere between that first one, which was like December 10th, I think, to February 1st. But while I'm home, I'm like, listen, this has been stressful emotionally and mentally and spiritually, trying to figure out if this is for me. I have this document that I've done. I'm going to edit these writing samples and personal statements, not to make sure that they fit the school that I'm applying to, but I want this done. So I think I got them done by mid-December. So I'd say overall I spent maybe about a month working on materials for the applications, and then maybe about 2 months from deciding to look for programs to applying to all the programs. So the day that I applied to like the last 3 programs, I called all my family, all like my mom and my brother and everything like that, and I made us all stand in the front room and hold hands and just pray on it. And we just asked God to put a blessing on everything and make sure that there would be like financial provision, and that it would just be okay. I'm going to take a break to sip. So that was December. And I thought, okay, once you get the applications in, you're going to be able to sit and chill for a minute, and you're not really going to have to think or worry about it for a while until maybe you hear about interviews. I think it maybe was a month. And then I heard back from UCLA to interview, and it was a mess. I had mixed up the time. I forgot they were on a different time zone. So I was messaging them about having the interview, and I was 2 hours early, which is better than 2 hours late, absolutely. But it was still a mess. And it was like a 3-person Skype interview, and it was pretty intense, and I didn't think about the questions they were going to ask. So when they asked me what professors I would want to work with, I had to like try and pretend like I was looking at my notes and Google a professor real fast. So there was that one, and they were telling me that I wouldn't be able to do the practice like of making theater and making art and creation the way that I would want to as much there. So that was kind of deflating, especially since at that point they were like my number one in my head. And then I heard back a couple weeks later or something like that from who was it? I think from LSU and the University of Georgia around the same time for trying to do, UGA said, hey, let's have a chat. LSU was like, hey, can we interview you? So the day that I said, yeah, let's have a chat. Let's interview. And the day that I was scheduled for my LSU interview, I found out I got into the University of Georgia. So I was so excited. I was like, yes, Jesus, we did it. I made one. I got one. That's all I needed. I just needed to know that I could get one. And I had an interview like 20 minutes later that I was not ready for because I had just found out this information. And I was calling my mom and I was like, we got it. And they're going to give me like an enhanced stipend the first and the fourth year and da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, yes. And they're going to give us money to go visit the school. And I was like, come on, Jesus. So I had to sit down and get ready for my LSU interview. And I sat down for my LSU interview and I'm like talking, and the man was super kind and everything, but all he was really doing was asking me if I had questions. So I was just asking him questions like, what kind of culture do you guys have in your program and at the university? And what does that diversity offerings look like? What kind of financial assistance are you giving? What kind of facilities do you have when it comes to like theater and practice and things of that nature? Yeah, just like all the questions that really apply to what was interesting to me. He asked me a question about the University of Chicago because I had mentioned school culture. And I was like, okay, so, I think it's your turn for like questions now because it's an interview and I want to make sure he asked me the thing so I could like show up and show out. He's like, no, the only thing that I really wanted to ask you is if you wanted to be in touch with a PhD student here, and you already said yes. So that's all I wanted to ask. And I was like, oh God. Oh no, I don't know what this means. Because it was a weird interview. So I kind of like was excited about talking with LSU because they said that they were going to let me do kind of a practice infused dissertation, which is completely unheard of in theater pretty much. So I was like, okay. And at this point, I've gotten into UGA and they want to talk with me the next day and just talk about like, hey, we want you and this is why and this is what we have and these are the departments that we think you want to work with and da-da-da-da-da and when you want to come visit and just all these other things. And I was kind of deflated. I was excited, but I also felt I had put so much pressure on these decisions and on getting these acceptances and hoping that they would kind of validate these things. And these decisions just couldn't hold up to that amount of pressure. Like I thought that Chicago would be different and there would be sunshine coming out of my behind and that the glitter would be behind me every time I walked. Like I thought life would be different when I got into one of these schools, and life looked exactly the same. Chicago was still cold, so it was just like, what is going on? And then Florida's like, hey, let's talk. I'm like, okay, cool. Talk to Florida. It's a lovely conversation. Long and lovely. And so I'm like, okay, I like Florida. I like what they're saying. Hopefully I get to, get into them. They want me to talk to them again, like to interview again. I'm like, okay, that's different. At this point, every application has been completely different, and every interview process has been completely different, from no interview to a very formal interview to like a phone to a Skype to 3 people to 1 person to like just crazy different to 2 interviews, just crazy different. Excuse me, crazy different. So I'm like, okay, get on the phone with Florida. Florida's like, so would you consider come getting a master's, like a funded master's degree with us? And I'm like, I'm trying to like still, be a good interviewee, but at the same time, I'm like, no, that's not what I want. I'm currently getting a master's degree. Why would I want another one? And it just was also very deflating too, because you're like, oh, y'all don't think I'm ready. And so it's all these kind of fears getting interjected of, well, what if I'm not ready? And my mom's like, girl, you better get let that go. You done already been accepted to another place. Ain't nobody worried about Florida. So I'm like, okay. At this point, I know I still want LSU. And I have not heard, like, LSU has been emailing me and we've been talking. And they're like, yeah, if you decide to come here, da-da-da-da. And I'm like, why they keep talking to me like they've accepted me? Like, can you accept me? And then we can talk about it, right? And they want to nominate me for this financial award that'll give me an enhanced financial package. But I'm like, but y'all haven't accepted me to the school, so what is going on? So I emailed them. I'm like, hey, do you know when I should hear back about being accepted or not? And they're like, oh, we're sorry we didn't make that clear. Yeah, no, like we definitely have accepted you and want you and everything. Sorry we didn't make that clear. And I'm like, dadgummit. And I guess it was kind of somewhere at the bottom of one of the emails that I hadn't really seen, but we had just been emailing so much back and forth that it got lost in the thread and lost in all the information that we were kind of sharing with each other. So, yeah. So that's what God did. God was like, all right, you get the University of Georgia and you get LSU. And I'm like, okay, cool. Because I didn't get UCLA, and then Florida wanted me to get a master's. So I got these 2 schools. I'm like, all right, they're both warm. They're both thinking about 4 years. They're both offering a good financial package thing, and they're both at least giving the illusion that I'll be able to do practice still. But Georgia was kind of talking about practice like it was a hobby, right? Like it shouldn't distract me from my dissertation, and I wasn't really feeling that vibe as much. But I was just kind of waiting to hear back about the financial aid package from LSU. The nomination the award they had nominated me for. So I found out on Friday of this week, something of that nature, that I did get the financial award. So I was like, okay, yeah, we're good. Yes, thank you, Jesus. Thank you. Because that was the only thing that the student at LSU, PhD current student, was telling me. She was like, the financial package is a little stressful. It's a little tight. So this one gives $20,000 a year, I think. I don't get to teach as much as other students get to teach because they just want me to focus on school. And I have to do like community service and some other things and other stipulations. But so yeah, that was just, it was a crazy journey. It was a crazy journey. And all of my campus visits got canceled because of Corona. And I was really excited to go visit because I know that that's what put me at University of Chicago is when I went to go visit. So I was just praying on it. I'm just like, okay, Lord, tell me where you want me to be. And then I got into that financial award. So yeah, I think we're gonna go to LSU for my PhD. Because I Googled and they have an H&M in the town and 3 Walmart supercenters. And they are really close to New Orleans, and I think New Orleans food is delicious. They're going to let me practice. I like their rec center better. I like their website better. Weird things that you have to try and like weed out whether you're going to go to a school or not because you can't visit them. So yeah, that is my testimony of what God can do if you just listen to their voice, and if you're very honest about who you are and what you want. And I hope that does something for you guys. So be good, lovies.